So today we're going to be making mutton biryani, one of my favorites. So you want to start with filling your pot midway, just enough to cover the lamb, and we're going to turn on the fire as normal. And you'll see me using tongs to put the mutton inside of the pot. I have like this stigma where I don't like touching meat because I feel like it's unsanitary until it's boiled. You get all those germs off. So you want to boil your lamb for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Here you'll see me separating the lamb or goat after the 2 hour mark, and I just like to separate it so that it can cool down, and I can basically set some of the broth aside and use that same pot to start sauteing my onions or like my base. And you can either choose to save some or not. So I'm going to chop up some chilies, a red onion, and a tomato. This is a typical base when making Indian food, I've learned. You usually either fry it or you can puree it, but it's always an onion, some chilies, some tomatoes, ginger garlic paste, the basic things. And if you're one that's just starting to cook Indian food and it's your first time, keep in mind that you can still use this for a majority of your bases and it'll come out good depending on what type of seasonings you add. When I cut up my chilies, I do prefer to leave the seeds. You don't have to, depending on how spicy you want it, but I do enjoy a good spice, so I always leave the seeds. And one important thing is you kind of want to chop up your tomatoes to medium to small squares. What I've learned is the more squares you create based on whatever size you're looking for, the easier it is for it to kind of mix in with other sauces. It'll like not get mushy sooner, but it'll cook down a lot faster. Here you'll see me putting my chilies, the green chilies, the red onion, some almonds. That's one of the things in my base for like curries and masalas when I'm making mutton. And you have seen me put in a very dark red pepper. That is a Mexican pepper, which I started using recently, and it's so good. It gives it an even more kick. So about that broth, I usually use some of it to basically season the rice. I was planning to put it inside of this mixture, but I didn't. I ended up using a little bit of warm water, like 1/4 of a cup of warm water. You can actually use some of that broth from the goat, and you just want to keep pulsing or puring it until it's a smooth consistency. I like to keep doing it until all of the almonds are crushed and it smoothed it out. It gives that little nutty flavor, but it's not too nutty, therefore it's enjoyable. So I put 1/4 cup of oil. I put some, what do you call those things? Oh, I can't think. But I put some cinnamon and some cardamom, and I'm just putting pieces of my lamb into the pot so I can saute it a little bit. It's completely cooked. I like for it to get a little brown on it. And here you'll see me constantly doing that just to make a few pieces a little bit more crisp or brown. By the way, sorry guys, I keep saying lamb and goat, but this is goat. And you'll see me putting in that mixture which I've created. And here we're just mixing it into the oil to give it a little bit of cooking it down a little bit. And when it's cooked, it'll turn a dark green. And I'm adding in my chopped tomatoes. I do like to mix it a little bit so that it'll cook evenly, the tomatoes, and they will blend in a lot faster. And if you don't want to use a full cinnamon stick, you can just use cinnamon powder. Here you'll see me adding in some ginger garlic paste, and I usually put in 2 spoons. And then this is some extra hot chili powder, some coriander powder, and this is a little bit of the biryani masala because I am making biryani. So if you want to add a little bit more seasoning without having to blend everything yourself, you can pick that up from the store. So you'll see me putting a little bit of that. You can also use some garam powder. And here I'm adding some of that broth and mixing it just so that it's not a very thick paste. It'll smooth out some more where it has a thinner consistency, so I can start putting in my lamb. Again, I'm saying lamb, the goat. And I just mix it so that the flavor can coat all the pieces of goat. And I usually let it cook a little bit in there so it absorbs that flavor. One thing that I haven't added to this recipe was salt, and I noticed that at the very end. Now I'm adding some basmati rice. I really like this when cooking biryanis. And here I'm just showing. I'm going to cut up some cilantro leaves, and I like to sprinkle this on top. It gives a really good taste. If you do not like cilantro, you don't have to put cilantro, but it's one of my things that I like to do. And I know it's a lot of biryanis that I've tasted or my friends have made usually also have cilantro. It adds a good flavor. And I'm just going to spread it on top. If you want, you can also mix it, which you'll see me doing, I believe. But I'm just spreading it on top before I cover it and let the biryani cook a little bit longer. And I'm just going to cover it for about 30 minutes. And this is the final look. It's completely delicious. Remember, added salt at the end. But don't forget the salt as I did. But it's completely delicious with a spice kick. And you can serve it hot or you can wait on later. But it's so good with